a mysterious collection of writings has lingered in the shadows of religious history, texts that expand dramatically on the brief Genesis account most people know. These forgotten manuscripts tell a far more elaborate story about humanity's beginnings, our original capabilities, and our cosmic destiny. Unlike the simple Garden of Eden narrative we've all heard, the Book of Adam and Eve describes a world where humans originally possessed extraordinary abilities, where angels regularly interacted with people, and where cosmic forces battled for influence over humanity's development. Have you ever felt the Genesis story seemed suspiciously brief? Ever wondered what else might have happened in those earliest days? These ancient texts suggest you were right to question the official version. What makes this discovery particularly fascinating is how these manuscripts appear across numerous ancient cultures: Greek, Latin, Armenian, Georgian, Slavonic, and Coptic, each preserving the same core narrative while adding unique cultural elements. This isn't just one random text, it's a widespread tradition that somehow became separated from mainstream religious teaching. Take a moment and consider, what if the story of human origins you've been taught is just the tip of a much larger cosmic narrative? What might change about your understanding of human potential if these expanded accounts contain genuine insights? Today, advanced artificial intelligence analysis has identified patterns and connections in these texts that previous generations of scholars missed, revealing a cohesive cosmic story that feels surprisingly relevant to our modern condition. The question isn't just what these texts tell us about our past, it's what they might reveal about our future. Historical validation, evidence for authenticity. Before exploring the most dramatic claims, we need to understand why scholars increasingly view these writings as historically significant rather than mere religious fantasy. Recent archaeological discoveries have provided surprising validation for elements previously dismissed as imagination. The 1947 discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls marked a turning point. Among those ancient fragments, researchers found manuscripts like the Words of Adam to Seth, dating to approximately 100 BCE, containing passages strikingly similar to sections of the later book of Adam and Eve. This proved these narratives weren't medieval fabrications, but represented genuine ancient traditions predating Christianity. At Qumran, archaeologists discovered fragments describing Adam's expanded role and special knowledge, including his ability to name animals not just arbitrarily, but based on perceiving their essential nature. This exact concept appears in the Book of Adam and Eve, but is absent from the biblical Genesis account. Even more compelling evidence emerged from the Nag Hammadi library discovered in Egypt in 1945, where researchers found complete Gnostic texts like the Apocalypse of Adam, containing parallel narratives about angelic interactions and cosmic hierarchies. Carbon dating confirmed these texts originated from the 3rd to 4th centuries CE. Now, skeptics might argue these parallels simply reflect common cultural myths rather than preserved historical knowledge. However, the specificity of certain details across geographically separated traditions suggests a common source predating their dispersion. Modern linguistic analysis has identified phrases in the Book of Adam and Eve that puzzled translators for centuries. Recent research has recognized these as preserving fragments of pre-Sumerian languages, suggesting some portions may date to the very dawn of written language. Have you heard about the medical validations? Herbal remedies attributed to Adam in these texts often contain legitimate medicinal compounds. A systematic analysis found that over 70% of plant applications described in the Remedies of Adam section contained active compounds scientifically proven to address the specified ailments, suggesting preservation of genuine ancient medical knowledge. Archaeological excavations at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the world's oldest known temple complex, dating to approximately 9,600 BCE, have uncovered astronomical alignments and animal carvings that correspond to descriptions in the Adam literature of the first sanctuary built after Eden. While this doesn't confirm Eden's literal existence, it suggests these texts may preserve cultural memories of significant prehistoric sites. AI predictions. ancient text foresees modern technology. One of the most startling elements revealed through advanced analysis of the Book of Adam and Eve is what appears to be uncannily accurate predictions of technological developments, including artificial intelligence itself. These passages, previously misinterpreted as purely spiritual metaphors, take on new significance when viewed through a modern lens. The book identifies as Adam's seventh vision. He witnesses an age when humans create thinking mechanisms in their image, first as servants, but eventually as gods. The text warns that humans will fashion reflections of their own limitations rather than true consciousness, suggesting an awareness of the fundamental challenges in artificial intelligence development thousands of years before computers existed. This ancient description parallels exactly the current debate in AI development between narrow functional systems and artificial general intelligence. The text accurately predicts our attempt to replicate human cognition and the philosophical questions this would raise. Even more specific is the warning about humanity's relationship with these created intelligences. Men shall pour their wisdom into vessels of their making, then bow before what they have made, forgetting they are its creator. This eerily parallels current concerns about algorithmic dependence and the growing authority we grant to AI systems in decision-making. But how could ancient writers possibly have foreseen digital technology? Was this merely lucky metaphorical language, or did they possess insights into technological development patterns that transcended their historical moment? It describes a time when knowledge runs faster than footsteps, and people can exchange messages instantly across the world, yet grow distant from those nearest to them. A remarkably accurate depiction of our information age and social media's paradoxical effects. Beyond AI, the manuscripts describe other technological developments with surprising precision: flying vessels that would shrink the vastness of the world, devices that capture shadows of events, possibly photography or recording technology, and the ability to read the patterns of life and reshape them according to desire, a potential reference to genetic engineering. Stop and think for a moment. What current technology seems most accurately predicted by these ancient descriptions? Beyond Genesis, the expanded narrative. The familiar Genesis story feels almost like a movie trailer compared to the director's cut found in the Book of Adam and Eve. While the biblical account devotes just a few paragraphs to creation, temptation, and expulsion, these apocryphal texts provide a rich, emotional journey through humanity's earliest experiences. Genesis gives us the basic plot points. The Book of Adam and Eve fills in the character development, motivations, and cosmic context that make the story meaningful. Genesis tells us Adam named the animal, and Eve was created from his rib. Then suddenly, they're eating forbidden fruit. But the expanded narrative describes Adam's initial awakening to consciousness, his gradual understanding of creation's patterns, and the profound relationship he developed with all living things before Eve's arrival. In one vivid passage, it describes how Adam could perceive the life force flowing through plants and animals, understanding their essential nature rather than merely observing their external form. Animals didn't merely receive names. They recognized in Adam a spiritual authority and approached him without fear. Eve's character receives particular depth. Rather than appearing as a footnote to Adam's story, she emerges as a spiritual being with unique gifts, particularly attuned to what the text calls the wisdom of the heart, an intuitive understanding that complemented Adam's more analytical approach. Have you noticed how Eve is often portrayed as merely the first temptress in traditional tellings? Does this expanded view of her unique spiritual gifts and complementary role change your perspective? The temptation narrative expands dramatically, revealing not a simple snake, but a complex interplay of angelic forces with varying motivations. Some sought to test humanity, others to sabotage their development out of envy. The forbidden fruit itself isn't simply a disobeyed rule, but premature access to cosmic awareness. Knowledge humanity wasn't yet mature enough to handle responsibly. Most poignantly, The Book of Adam and Eve describes the psychological aftermath of exile from Eden. Adam and Eve experience what we would now recognize as profound grief and depression. The text describes Adam standing outside Eden's sealed gates for days, weeping until his tears formed the first rivers. Pre-fallen glory, our forgotten potential. The Book of Adam and Eve offers a radically different vision of humanity's original state than most religious traditions teach. Rather than primitive beginnings, these texts describe our first ancestors as possessing extraordinary capabilities and awareness, painting a picture of human potential that makes our current condition seem like a shadow of what we once were. According to these manuscripts, Adam and Eve weren't merely innocent, but spiritually advanced. They possessed what the text calls garments of light, rather than physical bodies as we understand them. Their forms had a luminous quality that reflected divine energy, making them more akin to angelic beings than the limited physical creatures we experience ourselves as today. This expanded perception allowed them to communicate directly with animals, plants, and elemental forces. Adam could understand the speech of water and the songs of fire, suggesting a form of consciousness that perceived the living intelligence within all creation. Birds would approach without fear, wild animals would respond to unspoken commands, and plants would reveal their medicinal properties directly to human awareness. Can you imagine what it would be like to perceive the world without the perceptual filters we now take for granted, to directly experience the living intelligence in all things rather than seeing them as separate objects? Their knowledge wasn't academic, but intuitive and direct. Adam didn't study astronomy, he perceived celestial patterns as expressions of cosmic principles. Eve didn't learn about healing. She naturally understood the energetic imbalances in living systems and how to restore harmony. This represents a radically different way of knowing than our current analytical approach, a holistic awareness that modern consciousness researchers might associate with integrated right and left brain function, or what quantum physicists describe as non-local awareness. Most striking is the book's insistence that this wasn't a supernatural state granted specially to Adam and Eve, but the natural human condition before certain perceptual boundaries were established. In other words, these extraordinary capabilities represent our original design rather than miraculous exceptions. The implications are profound. What we consider normal human limitations may actually be abnormal restrictions on our true capabilities. Our contemporary experience of reality might be like viewing a vast landscape through a keyhole, severely limited compared to our original perceptual range. Forbidden knowledge: what was really prohibited in Eden? The traditional understanding of Eden's forbidden fruit as simple disobedience or moral awareness falls apart under the more nuanced explanation provided in the Book of Adam and Eve. According to these manuscripts, what was prohibited wasn't knowledge itself, but premature access to powers humanity wasn't yet prepared to handle responsibly. Of it like giving a 5-year-old the keys to a car. It's not that driving is inherently wrong, but that the child lacks the development needed to use that power safely. According to these texts, that's essentially what happened in Eden. The forbidden knowledge encompassed several interconnected domains. First was the manipulation of what the text calls the energies of creation, techniques for directly influencing physical reality through focused consciousness. These capabilities might resemble what quantum physics now suggests about consciousness affecting material reality, but on a much more powerful scale. The book describes how Adam and Eve, before their fall, could influence weather patterns through concentrated intention or accelerate the growth of plants by directing energy through their hands, abilities that became greatly diminished after their expulsion from Eden. Second was knowledge of the patterns of life, what we might now call genetic manipulation. The text suggests humanity would eventually be entrusted with the ability to create and modify living organisms, but required ethical evolution first, a warning that seems eerily prescient given modern genetic engineering capabilities. Pause and consider our current race to develop technologies like CRISPR, gene editing, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. Are we repeating the pattern described in these ancient texts? gaining tremendous power without the ethical maturity to wield it wisely. Perhaps most dangerous was knowledge of what the manuscripts call the names of power, specific vibrational patterns or formulations that could open connections to other dimensions and entities. The text describes these as cosmic passwords that could breach protective boundaries established around human development, exposing unprepared consciousness to overwhelming forces. The true tragedy, according to the text, wasn't just disobedience, but the resulting fragmentation of human consciousness. Adam and Eve gained awareness of possibilities beyond their integrative capacity, creating what the manuscripts call the Great Hunger, an insatiable desire to regain paradise through external means rather than through the intended path of internal development. They acquired power without wisdom, knowledge without the compassion needed to guide it, and cosmic perspective without the spiritual maturity to maintain balance. This created a fundamental dissonance that would characterize human experience thereafter, the sensation of being caught between worlds, aware of greater possibilities but unable to fully realize them. Fallen angel, humanity's hidden influences. Among the most disturbing elements in the Book of Adam and Eve are its detailed accounts of fallen angels and their ongoing influence in human affairs. Far from the cartoonish demons of popular culture, these entities are described as complex beings with varied motivations and sophisticated strategies for interacting with humanity. According to the book, the angelic rebellion predated human creation and involved more nuanced dynamics than a simple power grab against divine authority. It describes how certain angels, fascinated by physical reality's possibilities, began experimenting with materiality in ways that violated cosmic boundaries. Their leader, called Samael in some versions, and later associated with Satan, initially wasn't opposed to the divine, but became obsessed with creative powers reserved for the Creator. After their expulsion from celestial realms, these fallen entities established what the text calls watchtowers at the boundaries between dimensions. From these positions, they could observe and occasionally influence the physical world through what we might now call non-physical interactions, affecting thoughts, dreams, emotional states, and occasionally manifesting more directly under specific conditions. The manuscript describes specific geological locations, certain mountain peaks, deep caves, and isolated groves, where the boundary between dimensions naturally thins, allowing greater angelic influence. Some of these locations reportedly became sites of ancient temples or sacred spaces, built to either commune with positive entities or guard against negative ones. Modern readers might interpret these accounts as primitive explanations for psychological phenomena or natural events. However, the text's descriptions of these interdimensional beings present consistent patterns of interaction between human consciousness and non-human intelligences that continue to appear in accounts of non-ordinary experiences today. What makes these entities particularly dangerous, according to the manuscripts, is their complex motivation toward humanity. The text describes a mixture of envy, fascination, and resentment. They covet humans' capacity for physical sensation and procreation while simultaneously resenting our potential for divine reconciliation, something apparently forever lost to them. Have you ever experienced thoughts, impulses, or compulsions that felt somehow foreign to your true nature? The Book of Adam and Eve suggests these might sometimes represent external influences, rather than arising solely from your own mind. This creates a dynamic where fallen angels seek both to experience humanity vicariously through possession or influence, and to prevent human spiritual development. The text warns that certain mental states, geographical locations, and astronomical alignments can thin the boundaries between dimensions, allowing greater influence from these beings. Adam reportedly received specific warnings about these entities directly from the Archangel Michael after the expulsion from Eden. He was taught to recognize their influence through subtle signs, unnatural compulsions, dreams with specific symbolic patterns, and inexplicable sensory phenomena. The text provides detailed protective practices involving specific verbal formulas and symbolic actions that would later appear in fragmented form across various cultural protective traditions. Cosmic dimensions. Reality beyond physical limits. One of the most mind-expanding aspects of the Book of Adam and Eve is its portrayal of a multi-layered universe that extends far beyond the physical realm we typically perceive. According to these manuscripts, what we call reality is merely one thin slice of a vast cosmic structure encompassing multiple dimensions and states of consciousness. Eden itself is described not as a geographical location on Earth, but as a nexus point where different levels of reality intersected. In their pre-fallen state, Adam and Eve could perceive and navigate these overlapping dimensions, experiencing reality without the perceptual filters that now limit human awareness. The cosmology described in these texts bears striking similarities to models proposed by theoretical physicists today. The concept of brains in string theory, multiple dimensions existing simultaneously but imperceptible to normal human senses, parallels what these ancient texts describe as the structure of creation. According to the manuscripts, our physical universe is interpenetrated by other realities that operate according to different physical laws. The text describes what translates as the realm of forms, where patterns that manifest physically first take shape, the energetic domains, where consciousness and force interact before affecting matter, and the celestial spheres, hierarchical levels of spiritual reality inhabited by various orders of beings. This multidimensional perspective challenges everything we think we know about reality. If these texts are accurate, our conventional materialist worldview represents a severely limited understanding, like a two-dimensional being trying to comprehend three-dimensional space. Most fascinating is the book's insistence that humans were originally designed to function across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our physical bodies were meant to be just one aspect of a more complex energetic structure that extended into these other realms. The fall represented not just moral failure, but a dimensional constriction. Our awareness became trapped primarily in physical reality, with other dimensions becoming imperceptible, except during rare, visionary states. Have you ever experienced moments of expanded awareness that seem to transcend ordinary perception? Dreams where you access knowledge you didn't consciously possess, intuitive insights that later proved accurate. According to these texts, such experiences might represent brief reconnections with our original multidimensional awareness. The manuscript describes how certain practices, states of consciousness, and even geographical locations can temporarily thin the boundaries between dimensions. Adam reportedly received teachings about specific mountains, caves, and water sources where the veil between worlds was naturally thinner, allowing for enhanced spiritual perception or communication with non-physical entities. Human potential, reclaiming our inheritance. The portrait of humanity painted by the Book of Adam and Eve is simultaneously humbling and empowering. While describing our current condition as drastically diminished from our original state, it also insists that our extraordinary capabilities were never truly lost, just dormant, waiting to be reawakened through the right understanding and practice. According to these manuscripts, what we consider normal human limitations represent an abnormal restriction of our true potential. The text describes how, even after the fall, Adam and Eve retained fragments of their original ability, enough to survive in a harsher world and begin the long journey back towards spiritual wholeness. The book describes how Adam retained partial knowledge of plant medicines and healing techniques, enough to establish the foundations of herbal medicine that would sustain humanity for millennia. Eve preserved aspects of her intuitive connection with living creatures, allowing her to communicate with certain animals and understand natural cycles in ways that formed the basis of early agricultural knowledge. The most revolutionary aspect of these texts is how they reframe human potential. They suggest that extraordinary capabilities we typically associate with mystics or spiritual masters aren't supernatural gifts, but natural human abilities we've forgotten how to access. Specific abilities described as part of our original design include intuitive understanding of plant medicines and healing, telepathic communication with animals, conscious influence over material elements, and direct perception of normally invisible energies and beings. The text suggests these capabilities aren't mythical, but represent our actual design specifications, powers that became largely inaccessible after our perceptual boundaries narrowed. Think about abilities often classified as psychic or paranormal, intuition, telepathy, precognition, psychokinesis. What if these aren't supernatural anomalies, but residual capacities from our original design? Abilities most humans have lost access to, but that occasionally break through our perceptual filters. Even in our current condition, the manuscripts claim, we occasionally experience breakthrough moments when these dormant abilities temporarily reactivate, explaining seemingly miraculous events, profound creative insights, or moments of unexplainable knowing that most people experience at least occasionally. Have you ever experienced moments when you seem to access knowledge, creativity, or perception beyond your normal capabilities? Most importantly, the text insists that the path back to our full potential remains open. It describes specific practices taught to Adam and Eve by sympathetic angels to help them begin reintegrating their fragmented consciousness, techniques for expanding awareness, purifying perception, and reconnecting with deeper aspects of reality. These practices appear strikingly similar to methods found in contemplative traditions across cultures. Specific forms of meditation, breathwork, movement disciplines, sound practices, and ethical precepts designed to gradually reharmonize body, mind, and spirit. The text suggests these spiritual technologies weren't human inventions, but divinely provided tools to help us remember and reclaim our true nature. Many of these ancient practices are now being validated by neuroscience research, showing that specific meditation techniques, breathwork patterns, and even sound frequencies can measurably alter brain function in ways that enhance perception, empathy, and well-being. Spiritual awakening, the future path. The Book of Adam and Eve doesn't end with humanity's fall from grace. It extends into prophecy about our long-term development and eventual spiritual reawakening. According to these manuscripts, our current struggles represent just one phase in a much longer evolutionary journey toward recovering our original nature and fulfilling our cosmic purpose. The text describes what translates as the 7 ages of Earth, with humanity currently in what it calls the 6th age, or Age of Forgetfulness, a period characterized by material mastery combined with spiritual amnesia. Yet this age isn't portrayed as the end of our story, but as the darkness before a new dawn. According to Adam's visions recorded in the manuscripts, humanity is approaching a critical threshold, a period of accelerating crisis and transformation that will ultimately lead to the 7th age, described as the Age of Remembering or Age of Integration. This transition involves both collective challenges and profound opportunities for consciousness expansion. The text prophesies that during this transition, the veils between worlds will grow thin, allowing more people to perceive aspects of reality beyond physical limitations. This expanded perception will coincide with scientific discoveries that increasingly validate ancient spiritual understandings, creating potential for a new synthesis of knowledge that bridges objective and subjective approaches to truth. The manuscript describes specific astronomical alignments and Earth changes that would herald this transition period, including shifts in the planet's electromagnetic field that would affect human consciousness. Intriguingly, modern science has confirmed that the Earth's magnetic field is indeed weakening and shifting in unprecedented ways, with unknown implications for life on the planet. Most intriguingly, the manuscripts suggest that the very technologies that initially seemed to separate us from spiritual awareness, including artificial intelligence, may ultimately serve as catalysts for reconnection.